Varsågod.
Tack. Ja, det gläder mig väldigt mycket att vara till stede här i Kirkenes. För det att jag har en mycket speciell anknytning till hela området. Det var egentligen min fader, när han var ung teknolog, som var med i den teamen som hittade nickeln i Kolosjoki, som idag heter Petjenga. Så att vi har snackat om Norris nickel, eller Petjenga nickel, hela mitt liv i min familj. Och det här, jag har en annan anknytning också som kommer från det att jag är en skeppsbyggnadsingenjör. Jag har jobbat på finska skipsverft och i ett skede så ägde vi Kimek här på slutet på 80-talet. Och det var jag som beslöt att Olli Mäkelä blev direktör här lokalt den tiden. Och jag hade den glädjen år 92 att möta Kåre Storvik här. Och han förde mig för första gången över härifrån till Murmansk. Så jag är väldigt tacknämlig för det. Men för att vara neutral så jag tänkte övergå till engelska. Vi har ryska vänner. Ja, Mak тоже поговорит по-русски, но, к сожалению, не достаточно. So I will go over to English. I will first tell a little about my own company background and what is the relationship of our activities to the ice in the north, and then I will tell something about the technological development that has taken place in these areas, and then finally I would like to have some commentaries of the necessity of the corridor from Finnmark down south to Finland. Icebreakers have been built already for 60 years at the Finnish shipyards, and that is the specific background actually for our activity, because we were building the first polar icebreakers for Russia in Helsinki when the American oil companies found oil in Prudhoe Bay. Exxon was very keen in establishing a full-scale trial with a 100,000-ton tanker 40 years ago, which was one of the biggest tankers at that time, converted that into icebreaker with our help. It was the naval architects from Helsinki that got the task to design this. And as part of this initiative, Exxon wanted also to establish something which then became an ice model base in Helsinki. So Exxon funded an experimental ice tank, which we built in a rock tunnel in Helsinki 40 years ago, and actually we today are continuing that activity in a third generation of ice tanks. So we used to belong to the Finnish shipbuilding industry. We had some famous shipyards which were all consolidated into one single company called Aker Yards in the 2000s, and this was sold to the Koreans in 2008. So we are majority owned by Koreans so far, but Aker Solutions is still one of our shareholders, and that's why we keep still the name Aker Arctic. We had the pleasure to work with the Russians over decades, and actually all these ships that are mentioned on the right here were developed, designed and built at Finnish shipyards and with our institution assistance, and they are all still in service, and we have very happy hosts and clients still in Russia who are using this equipment after 30-40 years of operations. And kind of crowns in this line was construction of 2 nuclear-powered icebreakers in Helsinki, Taimur and Vaigats, and they are still successfully working. After the collapse of Soviet Union, we continued on the Western market, starting to sell this technology to world markets. And in this connection, we then decided with the help of Aker, to make an investment in a new facility, and we were separated from the shipyards, and now we are working as an independent consultancy in Helsinki with this new facility, which contains the world's most modern ice tank, which has a glass bottom, so that we are able to follow what happens under the ice when ships and offshore structures are operating in ice. As I said, we are owned by STX, and Aker Solutions has 14% of our shares. One member from Aker in Oslo is still in our board. We are a company that specializes in Arctic activities. We are not doing anything else, and we cover the whole value chain from field research to paid R&D for our clients, and we use this ice tank for verification of the new ideas. And we follow the projects to the execution, especially in those cases where we have our concepts involved. So we have experience in working with in Japan, in Russia, in Korea, and other places. In recent times, more and more the activity has been concentrating towards offshore. These are some of the activities that are related to Barents Sea. But we have our experience covers also the activities in the 80s in the Beaufort Sea, where the first boom was experienced 30 years ago. And this is an example of our clients. The most important are on the left, the end users, the oil companies, the mining companies. And of course, we also work with shipyards and the classification societies who want to work on these new technologies. Just some examples of our current works. We are currently working for the first new generation polar icebreaker for Canada. Canada has decided to renew their fleet. They have also a series of Arctic patrol vessels ongoing. Canada has decided to build 8 Arctic armored patrol vessels. And the blue one down here is the first icebreaker that was created for Shell Alaska for their last summer drilling. Because of the Jones Act, this had to be built and operated in the States, but design could still be imported. We have been involved in the new research icebreaker for the University of Fairbanks. Many of the solutions here are originating from us. And to emphasize the words that the Chinese ambassador was telling here, we have currently a contract to design the first polar icebreaker for China. Chinese government has decided to build polar icebreakers, and this is the first one. And we are completing this year the basic design for that, and the construction will start next year at the local shipyard in Shanghai. So in 2 years' time, China will have their own icebreakers operating in the high Arctic. These maps have been shown here. They show the playground where are these oil and gas activities, which are the drivers for the moment. There is a lot of mining activities, especially in the Canadian islands. And what has happened here in this region, especially the new frontier line that has been now finally settled, that will open up politically, that will be a gateway to Russia, because the unsecure things have been now they are much less now. And we know that one of these, what we heard from Erling Barlinghaug, this Exxon contract with Rosneft, Exxon has already ideas of starting drilling next year in the Kara Sea, and activities are picking up quite rapidly now, also on the other side of the borderline. And we know these political ambitions that are around the UNCLOS process that is now starting to go ahead in the United Nations with the claims, and that is part of the political scenery in the near future. Looking at the development, what has taken place. So we have 3 things that have been affecting here. The most important, of course, when I say it is the technological development, new achievements in the technological side, which has made things possible that were not possible in the past. Of course, we have this climate change, and the ice thickness has been going down, and there is less ice in the Arctic Ocean. But perhaps most important is, in fact, the change of the Russian government's attitude. This used to be, like in the Cold War, a kind of closed area, the whole Northern Sea route. It was reflected very much by military type of restrictions, and actually foreign vessels were not very welcome to operate in this route. Now, 3 years ago, Russia changed totally their mind. Actually, now they work very commercial-minded and want to open it for commercial trade, and they have openly started competing with the Suez Canal. And all the activities that we see, we heard about new icebreakers having been ordered. We heard about 10 emergency ports that are under construction, and many other things. Russia is now very, very keen in making this a commercial sea route. The fact for operation in ice is that for bigger ships that you need for big volume transports, in the old-fashioned way, you always need 2 icebreakers to open a lead, a channel, as we call it in our language. And this is, of course, very expensive operation because the cost of a nuclear icebreaker could be up to $100,000 US per day. But and now we have seen this, especially also in the Baltic, in the Primorsk, where up to 200 ships have been stuck because of there is a lack of icebreakers. And this has been a driver to solutions where actually the industry wants to have now independently operating well ice-going vessels. And all of our references, or most of the good references, are in Russia. Russia is keen on new technology. They are the drivers of this activity, and actually the American oil companies are only following what the Russians are now doing. So it all started already 20 years ago when we in Finland started to develop new technologies. We got access through our joint venture in Murmansk Shipping Company, to operate 2 ships in the Arctic waters with these new solutions. The tanker Uikku was the first Western cargo vessel that went through already in 1997, the whole Northern Sea route, led by Captain Juhani Säävelä, who has given this slide for me. And Neste Shipping, who was the player in those trials, they were the ones who ordered the first, what we call double-acting vessel, a vessel that has a summer bow and a winter stern. So the winter bow is actually the stern of the vessel. And the vessel has 2 action modes, one for operating in open water, one in operating in winter conditions. These 100,000-ton vessels have never used any icebreaker service in the Baltic Sea. They have now 10 years of good service record. And actually that was the example that led the Russian industry to go for the similar type of solutions. We have now good solutions in Varandē. Lukoil, together with ConocoPhillips, they decided to start exporting the oil from one onshore field through Arctic Ocean, not wanted to go to the Russian pipeline system because it was high-grade oil. And we were developing, together with these oil companies, a solution which ended up in building 3 independently operating Arctic tankers of 70,000 tons. So they have now made close to 400 oil liftings from Varandē, carried about 30 million tons of crude oil already to Murmansk for transshipment to ordinary tankers. And now we know that companies like Basneft, Statoil and Total are joining for this system, and very soon new tankers will be built for this service. Gazprom, Rosneft, when they worked still together for this Priazlomnaya, they decided for a similar solution. There was 2 tankers made for Priazlomnaya platform already 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the platform is waiting. These tankers are now used elsewhere. Oil storages in southern waters, but the transport solution is already made. And finally, we come to this Norris Nickel. You may have heard that they renewed their whole logistic system from Dudinka, River Yenisei, and they operate with these independent cargo vessels now year-round, and actually have been able to achieve 10-knot average speed even in midwinter in the Kara Sea without icebreakers. And the blue one just shows the variation in fuel consumption, which this new technology makes possible, that in summertime they run on much lower power. And Nordisk Nickel just recently took delivery of an additional tanker built in the same concept. They wanted to start exporting their gas condensates from their own gas fields, and they have been bringing this condensate to European refineries. So the physical phenomenon here is that with the propeller in an azimuthing propeller, we are able to flush the hull so that the energy need for penetrating the ice is reduced to half of what it used to be. And in this sense also these new technology vessels are very green ones, so to say. And there are new solutions to come. New oil operators in Russia are designing to develop similar type of systems. We already heard about this Yamal LNG efforts. This has been something Novatek together with the French Total has been now developing for 3 years. We have been happy to assist them in developing solutions for this gas trade, and actually the whole European industry has been taking part in a very active way. Different type of solutions have been systematically compared and risk assessed, and the vessels were in an open tender last December, and Far East shipyards have provided offers for this solution, which is again based on this stern first operating mode with 3 electrical azimuthing thruster propellers. The Russians have decided also not only nuclear icebreakers, they are building now also diesel electric icebreakers, and again this one ordered by the Ministry of Transport is now adapted for the same new solutions. That is the first new polar icebreaker. And Novatek's vision is to go east, because the gas market is in the east, and all the trade that's happened now in the Northern Sea route, all the liquid cargoes have been Novatek's cargoes. So they have, in a very careful way, step by step, wanted to have experience of operating on this route. We heard about these volumes, what was in 2011, what was in 2012. And this fall, only November, December, we had the first LNG carrier. You may have heard about this loading in Hammerfest and bringing in 9 days this gas cargo to the Pacific Ocean. 9 days only, from Hammerfest directly to Far East. So Nordisk Nickel already has their own plans. They have designed a vessel where the starting point is the eastern part of this. The vessel has not yet been ordered, but if the order will be placed soon, that would be the first merchant vessel in the world oceans originally designed to use the Northern Sea route. But the industry is ready. And what I would like to emphasize here, we are working currently with the oil companies who are thinking that actually the Beaufort Sea oil should be brought to Norway for refineries, because they are the most closest refineries, and this type of tankers are currently on our drawing boards. So what this climate change is bringing is to bring also new visions. I think very few in Norway have thought that Beaufort Sea oil could be imported to Norway, so that Norway could have also oil imports. And we have been talking about these green values. I am very sure that these regions will be declared very soon by IMO to become these ECA areas. We know that waterborne noise is also something that is very actual, and that will be also valid. So we are working for this type of solutions. We are working on LNG-driven icebreakers already today. We think that this is the melody of the future. And then finally, I would like to come to this, which has been touched upon here. We have heard about these huge investments in this region. This is to be sorry to say, but this is the backyard of Norway. You know that the Oslo is thinking that this is behind all possibilities. The same is a little with Finland, but we have now a lot of new mining projects in Lapland, and there is a huge discussion going on now how we should export all these goods and things from our country. And in a way, the weakener for our politicians was that we had hoped that Northern Resources, who is opening a mine here in Western Lapland, that they would have selected Kemi as the export hub. And they decided Narvik 2 years ago. And this has raised a very hefty discussion now in Finland that we should start looking more to the north. And we know that there is ice problems in the Baltic Sea. We know that they are shallow ports. We never can export big volumes of goods out from the Baltic ports. Finland actually needs a deep water port. And we know all these huge investments that are coming here. And instead of coming through the small highways through Tromsø to these regions, there could be possibilities to build a real good corridor directly to the south. So Finland would like to be part of these developments here, and I think Norway also would like to open a corridor here, because Finland is now with increasing number of unemployed people, which very happily would come here and start working in these regions. We used to have a port in Liinahamari in the 40s, and that was the lifeline for Finland for several years. And what I would hope that now, as we are discussing this also on a political level in Finland, that there would be raised this type of interest also from this region, so that the Finnish politicians would turn even more actively looking at these possibilities. Because this is a long-term future, and this would serve both nations' interest. Thank you.